The Bears snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, falling 28-31 at home against the Denver Broncos. Nick and I are going to review the game while we try to keep ourselves together after this one on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody? Oh my gosh, unbelievable, Nick. I'm Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, here with Nick Whalen from Football Guys. And I mean, seriously, Nick, I could barely hold myself together. I don't know whether to laugh. I don't know whether to cry. Justin Fields breaks 300 yards for the first time. He goes 3 full quarters with one incompletion that you could very easily argue does not count. And somehow the Bears let all of the air out of the balloon in the fourth quarter in a defeat that I swear, Nick, you could see coming from 14-28. So how do you feel about this game?
I laughed because I knew the defense was bad, especially, you could just say the defense is bad, but then when you know all of the secondary guys that are out for a while, I was like, how aren't they throwing at Greg Stroman and Elijah Hicks and whomever? And then I was like, okay, they get all the way down there and cool, we'll kick a field goal. We got this, or at least overtime. And then it's just been like the most epic collapse you could do. But I'm going to say this. I'm excited because Justin Fields played really well. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. He balled. He balled. We're talking throws over the middle. We're talking playing on time. We're talking tight window throws. We're talking long throws, short throws. There were so many things to like until it all fell apart. And I'm definitely with you. Look, I may be a little harder on Justin Fields going full Radiohead. Because, Nick, I got to be honest, man. It is hard for me to not have at least some emotion about how do we not close this out? We're spotted 3 scores and we don't close this out. But at the same time, for all we know, maybe they would have closed it out had they kicked on 4th and 1. Maybe all kinds of things could have committed some kind of butterfly effect. It feels pretty rich to actually pin anything on the quarterback that manufactured a touchdown on a 3rd and 2 to Khalil Herbert that most quarterbacks flat can't do. And that's if you don't count the Josh Allen play that he made to Cole Kmet to score one of the first touchdowns of the game. DJ Moore looked like a flat out beast. I thought Darnell Wright had a good game. Even the late hold notwithstanding. Looked to me like Darnell Wright played himself a solid game. We'll have to go back and review. And Fields looks confident for the first time in a long time. If anything, Nick, I might be a little worried about the guy just because you play like that and you still lose. That has to be, Fields has taken a lot of hits, literal and figurative. That has to be a body shot, if not bigger than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you look at the defense with how it is, this is the kind of game that we expected, this high scoring, it being 28-7, it was this is weird. I don't know what defensive players transported or teleported basically into Chicago uniforms because that's not who you think it is. But there's a few things I want to chat. I have some stats up. I think it's kind of interesting. So let's look in total today. Chicago had 471 total yards. We talked about this on the last podcast. The most total yards was week 1 Green Bay. This one was 471, not even close.
Night and day.
Yeah. And Denver had 311. So
what?
dominated total yards. Time of possession was 33:49, almost 34 minutes. Dominated. Yards per play, 6.7, which is 0.2 more than Denver. Penalties hurt us. We were 10 for 91, which was not, because last year we were one of the least penalized teams, and now we're one of the heaviest. 3 of 12 on 3rd down, which first half we were converting every 3rd down, and second half was not as much. But so that's part of it. You talked about some of the players. DJ Moore was 8 for 131 and a touchdown that I thought was going to be reversed.
I definitely thought that was going to be reversed.
Yeah. Only 9 targets though. So you're man, at the end, I know he was getting shadowed by Patrick Surtain Jr., but And then Mooney only had 4 targets, but he caught all of them for 51 yards. So you're like, because in the end there, I just retweeted this I not retweeted this. I found the video because I want to know what happened on the Cole Kmet interception there, right? The last play. So it looks like, and then I got some interactions from people in terms of after I posted the video, Cole Kmet and Fields said they saw a mismatch because I saw Surtain was shadowing more. So to me, that's like, okay, Mooney or Kmet. Okay. And in my mind, Mooney, right? Like speed.
Damari Mathis has looked terrible. That's number 27 for any film heads out there. He in all 3 of Denver's games just looks unplayable. Unplayable, Nick. Like,
and in the video, so it says like they saw a mismatch, and you see Kmet coming across the middle there, and his head is not turned, and he gets towards the defender, and then he just stops and then squares up to the ball, and then the ball goes another yard further than he thought. So it's one of 2 things: either that's the design of the play, and Fields was off by a yard, or it was a sight adjust. Right. And he did something that Fields didn't think he was going to do. So in the interviews, they said after the game, Kmet said Fields thought he was going to get to the defender and just seal off the defender and throw on this side of him, which if you look at it, that's exactly where the ball is. And Kmet sat it down too early and it was thrown right to the defender. So like, that's what people are going to say. Oh, another blown comeback from Justin Fields. And I'm like, man, like you could say intentional grounding. That was a bad play, but he looked pretty good at the end there. And then he had the fumble return, which I don't know. I kept trying to get an angle on this, Robert. Did it look like it got tipped out of his hand on the way up, or did it just slip out of his hand?
So I don't know. I guess I assumed it was tipped. I don't know if I want to believe in a world where it just flew out of his hand. But that to me is the real play worth talking about. Like intentional grounding sucks. It happens. Every quarterback seems like they take one eventually. The interception, like you're talking about, we've been begging Justin Fields to throw with anticipation. In fact, I believe most people on Twitter that have talked about Justin Fields' anticipation would say the phrase out loud, if he throws a pick, so be it, but throw it with anticipation. And he did. That's exactly what happened. The fumble is the real black mark. But there's like 15 gold stickers. Like, I mean, this is, to me, you can file this if you want to. I would argue, Nick, the most negative thing that you're allowed to say is, damn, I cannot believe we didn't win. And I wish that my quarterback would have made one more play. But that's really more one of those, like, reach into the box things. You know what I'm saying? Because on the other side of it, if you score 28 points and your quarterback delivers you like a well above average offensive performance, man, we got to close the door. But between the game itself, because the other argument would be, well, your defense only allowed 24 points, including the like late kick. The fumble, it can't be a play design. I mean, you've coached it. I know I'm going to speak your language here. It can't be anybody else's fault. It's a super tough play. Nobody's saying that that's easy. But it's not his line's fault because the guy's unblocked on purpose. It's not the play design's fault because the guy jumped that play design, and that exact kind of like way that somebody comes out of a bootleg is very, very, very common across the league. And I only know that because I swear JT O'Sullivan complains about it for every team on any time anybody runs boots. So everybody's got the wrong idea, I guess, on how you manage the top of that. And when you fumble in that setting, Nick, there's nobody else there to get the ball. Like, at least if you fumble in the pocket, maybe Lucas Patrick turns around and dives on the football. But when you fumble back there, it's just the defenders and you. And so a scoop and score becomes really easy. But that's like it. Like, that's frankly that's almost reaching into that like dark place where you're mad to be mad. Like, to me, if you really want to get frustrated, you have to get frustrated at the entire team. I'll ask you this, Nick. Why on earth in a critical 4th and 1, did we say, who do I trust most? I trust Larry Borum, Cody Whitehair, and Lucas Patrick. Those guys are going to go get me that yard and a half. What are we doing?
So I definitely in my notes, like ready for this, like I have a section just on this. So here's one thing I'm going to get to that one, but on the drive So it's 28-20, or no, I'm sorry, it's 28-21. On that drive, Chicago 7 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards,
Moving
7
it at
yards.
will, baby.
It's 1st and 10 at the 48 of Denver, and then it's the fumble recovery. So it's like, man, you could have just ate it too. You could have just been like, dumb play, and then you're still up 7, you
To
know?
me,
So
that's the
one
only
thing.
option. Of course, I'd love for there
Right,
to be an incompletion, but especially if
right,
he's jumping on you to the point where the ball flies out of your hand like that, there is a
right.
point where the quarterback just has to go, well, I'm screwed. Tuck the
Yeah.
ball, maybe
Well,
break the tackle, go full Yannick Ngakoue, but that's it, right?
and that's, I think, some of the problem when you're that athletic, you can get away with stuff. You know what I mean? And like you're powerful, but and then getting to that drive, the thing that bugged me the most on that one was, okay, it's tied 28. And in my mind, I was like, let's see the resiliency here, right? Of this team. 1st and 10 to start the drive. Hold on Mercedes Lewis on that 16-yard game by Herbert, which was a great effort by Herbert. I thought he had a great game.
Herbert was balling, man.
Yep,
Herbert wanted to win so bad.
he did. He did. And then it's let's see, then it's 3rd and 5 at the 30. False start on Larry Borum. 3rd and 10. And I thought this was, it could have been like the defining play of the day. Like all this adversity, 3rd and 10, Fields is back there. And I looked, guys were bracketed, Mooney and Moore for sure, covered. Fields scrambles for 20 yards. I'm like,
Big
all
time.
right, now we're down there. You know, then 7 yards, then Herbert has the 21-yard gain, and then hold on, Darnell Wright. and then anyways, I like the reverses to Darnell or to Tyler Scott. I thought those were nice little jet sweeps. Then it gets to the 4th down call. I get the trying to get him to jump off sides. I am a coach that is very for the jump off sides play. But because I went to a game on Friday, a high school game, and there were multiple times I was begging for that. Last year when I did coach, the head coach is like, Nick, that's not gonna work. I'm like, just do it once for me. It was like a 3rd and 4. And they got the first down, and he's like, and I didn't say anything. He's like, all right, whatever, like, because it works, because people, they get excited, they want to stop. So I get the first time doing that. The second time, if you think of the personnel, which you're talking about, and saying those are the guys that are going to win, don't be in shotgun, run in a handoff,
Ugh.
be under center at least so you could boot out or you could zone read it. What I would have loved to do, I had 2 different options that I like better than what we did. And this would be me, whether we got it or not. One is run with Justin Fields. You're +1. Put another tight end in there, not Robert Tonyan. Put like Lewis back there, and he's lead blocking, and you could counter and have Fields run. I mean, that's what Josh Allen in Buffalo would do.
Right.
You're +1. You have a good running quarterback, do that. Or have a read option rollout where the design is for Fields to run. If not, he could dump it to somebody. Like,
Right.
give yourself a chance. Like, use your best guys. And a shotgun run up the middle was like probably one of the dumbest ones I could think of, besides maybe trying to do a jet sweep again.
To me, it's relatively unconscionable. I mean, honestly, Nick, I'm just amazed at the way that the Bears seemingly frittered away whatever advantages that they had. Because like you're talking about, the team was moving the rock up and down the field. Khalil Herbert, I'm still amazed. Number 32 for Denver, whoever that is, was able to hit Herbert so hard on that 2nd and 5 run that he stopped his momentum altogether. Because Khalil Herbert's not an easy man to stop. And so whoever that guy was set up a monster play on that 4th and 1 that did not work. And it's a bummer seeing all that. I do think in moments like this, Nick, so both of us have now criticized the play design. And now I also want to throw my hands in the air and be like, sometimes criticizing play design and play calling can feel kind of cheap. Because the Bears also attempted a flea flicker, and those things routinely end in disaster. And they nailed a completion. There was a huge play to Equanimeous St. Brown on that play. Like, we never talk about the crazy, kooky, weird thing that works, right? We talk about the crazy, kooky, weird decision that definitely did not work. And I'm with you. Like, it leaves me grasping at air. I don't know how, in a tie game, you seriously call cover 2 and let Marvin Mims get that wide open for the whole shot. I have so many frustrations with the defense. Like, what was it? It was 14-28, I believe. Like, must hold drive, if you ask me, because this would have made it 14 points unanswered. And if you're a big believer in momentum, like I know a lot of coaches are, then you would have gotten a lot sweatier only up one score. And that pressure just leads to weird mistakes, like the fumble that we ended up seeing, and not one third down, or not one completed long third down that was converted, Nick. Not two, but three past the 50. How did it take the Broncos that long to realize, well, why don't we just throw? Like,
I mean, and throw deep, because they were short initially, but then it's like there was that one to Judy early, was the corner route, and Elijah Hicks is like 10 yards off. I'm like, who else do you have to cover, buddy? Like, start driving on that, you know? The one thing that I thought of too, and I'm curious if you would do this. If it's 4th and 1, and I know I need to, and I'm going to give it to a running back here, which I wouldn't personally. If you're going to do that, get Kari Blasingame in the game, right? And then you're going to I formation this, whatever.
I would have whisked out and kicked it. I'm going to be so honest with you.
Well, yeah, that's the other, obviously. But if you're going to go for it and you're going to give it to a running back, do you give it to your 223-pound rookie Roshan Johnson, or do you give it to your like 209-pound Khalil Herbert?
Roshan. I mean, I understand leaving Herbert in there, but especially on 4th and 1, I mean, it's got to have a read option tag. There's no reason I'm not going to allow Justin Fields to be a part of the play, in my opinion. But totally seriously, Nick, I consider myself a relatively aggressive coach. There are a bunch of situations where I want to go for it, and coaches disagree with me. Nah, man, we just gave up 21 points unanswered. I am kicking it. I'm going to the kickoff. I'm letting everybody go through whatever their standard cycle is so that I can say to the defense, hey, we've got the lead, but we do need you to hold them out of the end zone here. And if that would have meant overtime, it would have meant overtime, and I would have lived with it. But for me, especially if I'm Chicago, I would have been, and I was Matt Eberflus, I would have been so frustrated at the way Luke Getsy has botched these 4th and 1.5s that I would have had no faith in the Bears offense to convert. And lo and behold, they didn't. And it sucks to me when I, the fanalist, am sitting there lacking faith and rewarded for my lacking faith. I guess that's a double negative. More like, I hate it when I'm right about how like the Bears can't convert these short yardage things, and then they can't do it against the Broncos, Nick. The Broncos, for crying out loud. It's not going to get any easier than this, but
no, it won't get any. And the thing is they were dialing those up early, like,
right.
And here's the other thing too. Be consistent. If you're going to go for it, 4th and 1, when you could kick the field goal to be up in the game late in the 4th quarter, what happened to that 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, if you want to call it, to start the game?
Exactly. And I mean,
that's not going to cost you the game there.
Can't say it enough. I probably would have lost. Like, this Bears team, the way that the stadium was turning, like, had I kicked there, I'm not saying that would have worked, Nick. Like,
he could have missed too.
Could have, probably would have lost 34-31. Just being so real with you.
But I could live with it. If you kick the field goal, I could live it. Because what you're doing is you're trying to be like too cute. You're like, and I get it. If we get the first down there, then we can run the clock out and then a field goal. I get it. But is the risk worth the reward?
I mean, the moment you didn't get it, you lost.
Oh, you knew.
In a game like this. The only thing that I feel like either team, and granted, this is not how it worked out, because I would have expected more field goals, to be completely honest with you. But the only thing that I would have expected each defensive coordinator around the 4th quarter to really think that they could do was limit the opposing team to not a touchdown, right? Because each offense was just walking up and down the field. Now, obviously, that's not how things ended, but boy, did it feel like that at some point. Also, another thing that did not make me happy, just talking it out with you. Like, as much as anything else, Nick, this is a therapy session for the both of us, right? Where we help each other talk through it all. Fields was hitting like quick outs throughout most of the game. Fields was getting the ball out of his hand. And then as we got into the 4th quarter and the pressure did start to cook up, we saw the scramble. The scramble is awesome. We saw a little bit more hanging onto the ball that I swear got longer and longer as every drive. I'll go back and literally clock it. So I may recant this take immediately. First things first on our, Tuesday night recording for this week, because it's a short week against Commanders. Like,
yeah.
So I may immediately get on with you and be like, nope, was totally wrong. Fields played like he played the entire game, but it felt as if the entire offense felt all of the negative emotion that the entire stadium was just cooking up through as the Broncos slowly called their way back. And I mean, that last drive, I know a lot of Chicago was really, really, really there with him, but man, that looked hard. That looked really, really hard for everybody on that offense. I don't even know if I have a greater point in this. Just that, like, it is wild watching a team on this kind of losing skid because it makes the fourth quarter look unplayable, like unplayably difficult.
Yeah. The other thing, sorry, I was listening to you, but I was counting here because
No, I get you.
I thought this. Okay, when they went up 28-7, and then Denver answered 28-14. So this would be a quiz for you. They went 3 and out the next drive. They had the fumble touchdown. They had the 4th and 1 that we counted. Okay, 3 drives there. There is 19 total plays there. How many do you think are a pass play?
If I had to guess, and are you counting the scramble as a pass play? Just so that I know. Okay.
No.
So even though it's called pass.
Right. Right. Yep.
I'm gonna guess 4 pass plays.
5 where he actually threw, and 1 was a first down and 5 yards because Surtain held more. Remember on that one,
right?
So like, does that one count? So I mean, you could count the scramble. So really, there's what 5, total.
How run plays?
How you were cooking? That was what was working. I get you want the clock to keep going, etc. But that's literally conservative play calling. And in my opinion, you could talk about the field, you could talk about whatever else. That's what cost you the game because you took the foot off the gas. You're like, you know what? We're going to feed Herbert. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you didn't convert. I mean, it was 3 and out. It was, again, you're moving the ball, but still fumble for a touchdown because apparently they were ready for that play, the boot when it was coming. And then on downs, I mean, you had 11 plays for 57 yards when you averaged 6.7 for the whole game. So that doesn't equate either. So, I mean, I would have been more aggressive still.
Would you have? Like, because you've actually coached these games. Like,
yeah, I would.
Dude,
well, because what was working in this game? Early in the game, it wasn't running the ball.
I mean, it was always throwing the ball. Like, seriously, the
vertical.
The Broncos, I'm going to get this aggressive. I do not feel as if there needs to be any kudos given to Vance Joseph or this Broncos defensive unit. I mean, if you wanted to make a move after the Denver game or after the Miami game, but then Denver's staff said, no, we can't move on from Vance. Let's just see how things are in Chicago. That was all the proof you need. Win or loss. I don't really care. Like, giving up 28 to this Bears offense in the first 3 quarters is not it, man. Like, Justin Fields can't set a Bears completion record on you in this one. Like, Justin Fields can't throw for his first 300 game ever in this one. And I mean, boy, oh boy, did the Broncos make things awfully comfy for Chicago's young starter. Like, DJ Moore was nearly unguardable, in my opinion. I mean, Darnell Mooney was open left and right. That late 3rd down that set up, I believe, the 4th touchdown where it was 3rd and 6 and Mooney's like a full step and a half open on the crosser that Fields hits him on. I can't believe he was that open, Nick. Yeah. I still can't. Like, the entire game they've been running crossers on you and you get him again that close to the end zone.
Well, and that was, I think that was mesh, right? I think it was. And then they hit Mooney on another one. I'm like, look at this. He's working his way through progressions. Like, you could see it. And he's like, his eyes were good. It's like, this is everything that we wanted. And then let's just run the ball.
Let's just run the ball. And I mean, we see it every week in the NFL. I feel like Sean McVay and the Rams just seemed like they fell victim to this a little bit. I mean, cursory red zone style watch, but it looked as if they got up 23 to 8. And then just started running the ball that little bit more. And I mean, man, Nick, I'm sure you've seen this. When you as an offensive coordinator have a game plan and then you artificially inject a few more runs, it'll completely shoot the game plan in the foot. Like, all of a sudden, your down management's completely off, right? You thought you'd be in 2nd and 5, but you aren't. You're in 2nd and 8. And so the pass play that you're going to call, that you were going to sequence with that, doesn't make any sense anymore. So instead, you shift to a separate passing play, which doesn't work because it's out of sequence. Now it's 3rd and 8, and somebody false starts. It's 3rd and 13, and you're already thinking about your punt. Like,
And well, and then you know that's check down or screen, like because the whole game is a chess match, and when teams know you're probably going to run the ball, you're going to have more in the box. That's the biggest part of this game that people don't get. It's how many are in the box or are going to quickly not guard your flat defender and come up versus how many are going to be there in coverage because you just play the numbers game. Honestly, almost no matter what, you should play the numbers game because if I can throw, even if it's a flat route and I got two receivers for their two DBs, that's good odds to me versus handing the ball off into the middle of everyone and hoping every block goes well.
seriously.
He hits it right and we get 8 yards. Like you're going to get 40 more seconds off the clock, but you're also going to punt and give them the ball back eventually. Like use the numbers advantage. You're DJ Moore and Mooney and everyone, they're better than their DBs. Why would you not want to do that? I mean, this is shooting, having Shaq shoot threes in the corner. That's what that is.
And it really bothers me too, because while I expect more from the defense every time I see a performance like this, the defense held them to 7 until the late stages of the game. Yes. I mean, I know this is so harsh, Nick, and I don't love being harsh either, but in a game where both offenses are cutting through the opposing defense like butter, going 4 drives where you score a touchdown for the other team, and that is all of the production that you produce, that's tough. Like, that's, as an offense, I would assume we want better. And yes, of course, you failed on 4th down within field goal conversion, but you made the decision not to kick, and you didn't back up that decision. I'm more pitting this on the coaching staff. At least I hope it sounds that way, because it is beyond me how bad this defense is, but I'm just not surprised about it anymore, right? I was surprised when the Bears were able to pick up a couple 3rd down stops early in the game, but then it felt all too familiar as the Broncos basically got whatever they wanted until they went into their own conservative shell. I mean, kudos to Will Lutz, man. Like, walking into Chicago, hitting a 51-yard field goal in the middle of a furious comeback like that because your team decided that shacking up on the 31 was totally cool. Wow.
Which honestly, by the way, on the field goal, I thought Dylan Cole, Quay Walker did. Right? Like jumped over, and I'm like, oh no. But if you go back and look, he jumped over the guard, which is legal.
Also, I think, now granted, this may not be true, so go fact check me. I could have sworn I heard once that if you don't make any contact with the lineman, it is legal. You just can't touch them. And with Quay,
I thought you can't jump over the snapper. I thought that's what it was.
That may be, it could be one of the two of them because he totally jumped over somebody and he did it clean. And I thought that they made a rule that basically you can't touch somebody. But maybe if you jump over the guard, that's kosher. Because, I mean, Cole was obviously watching on Thursday night. There's no way he wasn't. Whatever he was doing, he was trying to make some kind of a play. And I'm just amazed that Lutz was able to bury it within that capacity.
No, kudos to him. Because it took that one turn. I was like, oh, baby.
It was not down the middle.
No, but I thought with the Bears' luck, he'd miss, and then it'd be a flag on Cole and be like, here we go, 1st down.
That would have been terrible. That would have been so terrible.
So speaking of another penalty, I'm curious what your thoughts were, because I thought this was not a penalty. I mean, I'm not even going to argue the what?
Is it the roughness call?
Yes. Yes.
No.
He hit him in the shoulder.
But I also don't think DJ Moore scored that first touchdown. So I saw that as what goes around comes around.
But I think that was a 1st and 10 call. I think we still would have scored that drive.
I think so. I mean, at the time I would have told you, come on, are you sure? But they went on to bury 4 touchdowns. So obviously they were rolling at that point. And speaking of, I mean, for as much as, so to me, bad offenses have the worst small sample size problem, Nick, because this game was a reminder of everything I've ever seen about DJ Moore on his tape. Not only was he separating like crazy, man, that guy can catch. Like, some of the catches that he made, including the one that we're talking about, no, I don't think he got his foot down, but he did daggum well everything within physics to do so, and apparently convinced at least 2 officials that it was good enough to count for a score.
I mean, it was close.
It was darn close.
I mean, initially, I saw him like, that's going to get reversed. Like, I was like,
oh, I thought for sure. And
But again, but
yeah,
still with the roughing call. I get that he's going upward, but he hits him in the shoulder.
that call just keeps getting called this year. Like, all I can tell you is that after Tyreek got it, I was really, really mad. And then I saw a Rams player get that flag later. And then as I was watching highlights, I saw a Commanders player get that flag earlier in the day.
No, no,
Like,
no. Nope, nope, different call. So you're saying leading with the helmet?
I'm talking about the one on the sidelines where they went shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's not the one I'm talking about.
Are
I'm talking
you?
about the one with on Russell Wilson where he's
Oh,
throwing and Wilson's like this and he hits him in his arm/shoulder. He doesn't hit him in the head at all.
no, I guess I assumed he hit him in the head.
No, I looked.
Honestly.
Yeah, I looked, and so like he was upward trajectory, like or launching towards the head. I mean, if you like fake punch at somebody but don't connect, is it still illegal? You
I
know what
don't
I mean?
know.
Like that's
It
what I
might
felt
be.
like.
They might call it unsportsmanlike if you did.
I was
But
like,
that's
yeah,
such
right,
a
yeah,
funny
I know, no
thought.
kidding. But I was like, he didn't even hit him in the head.
It's almost
Or
like they gave him a roughing call off vibes.
that I think that's what it was. But they know how hard Brisker can hit. So what I was looking at is in the second half, the Denver made adjustments, and so that was what jump started the first touchdown drive to answer and get 28-14. So that was a big play, man. Jaleel McLaughlin, whatever. Like, man, he can squeeze into spaces, but they had explosives. So over 10 yards, he had a 31-yard play. P. Ryan had 11-yard reception. That back again had another 11-yard reception. So that was one touchdown drive. And then the next one, they had a 12-yard run by him, 25-yard reception by Judy. We talked about that one. 11-yard reception to Humphrey, and the touchdown to Sutton, which was good timing. But also, why is Brisker 4 or 5 yards deep in the end zone, which I thought was weird?
I don't know.
You don't guard that deep. And then there was the deep reception to Mims. So there's 8 plays over 10 yards they had completed or gained. It could be a rush too. In the second half, that's really bad. That's 8 explosives.
They just started balling. I mean, they just started rattling off a bunch of explosive plays. And the worst part to me, seriously, was gaining explosives because the Bears seen it all season. You can't hurt me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. But it's these long third downs where when the offense even, the Broncos offense seemed to recognize, well, why aren't we just going at them? Well, we think these guys are going to stop us. And Terrell Smith made a nice play on what ended up being the field goal drive, taking one away. And that's pretty much like just the one. Because outside of that, Russ was patiently taking his third down screen option or third down check down. And the Bears were getting stops almost off of a veteran quarterback playing it, quote unquote, like you're supposed to, instead of just throwing and letting your receiver go make the play. And I just can't help but feel disappointed because I understand it's a secondary of nearly nobody at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's incredibly makeshift. This is like in very many understandable ways, this is what we should have expected. But still, man, I don't know how you blow a lead like this and not get mad at somebody, right? Like, I'm not even trying to be Mr. Angry or Mr. Overly Passionate. It's more like you could be excited about the CW that we will not. I hope we don't talk about this until worst case scenario, the 45th minute of this podcast. We can go another 10 minutes without going there. But this is like borderline somebody has to get fired. Like, you were already 0-3. We said this. I still mean it. Despite how, oh my gosh, Nick, they put this take in a boiler and made me have to come back with it at just the worst time where I said, for Justin Fields, yes, of course he has to play well, but you have to win the game. And I can't believe they didn't win the game. I don't think it's Fields' fault that they didn't win the game.
No.
This is
I mean,
team losses you'll see, man.
He made like 3 mistakes the whole game.
3. One of them's just worth 7 points. And the other one ended the final drive. Like they were, oh my gosh, man.
You know what else was awesome? And we talked about this. I was so proud of him for, I think it was the third touchdown. He's rolling out. He could run it in. Buys time, and then throws, which everyone's going to
Yes.
flow with you. I was like, this
Yes.
is what we want you to do, because it opened. And actually, you could say the fourth touchdown's the same thing, him buying time, and then there's Herbert. So
Oh, yeah. I
that's a
mean,
whole nother realm of his game that could be huge.
here's the pull quote, right, Nick? That was the offense we spent the offseason telling people was on its way.
Yeah.
Like dual threat attack, but not directly dual threat, just a multiple run game, meaning zone, gap, toss, getting a whole lot of different run actions rolling. Maybe a little bit of QB designed run, but today was kind of a referendum on the QB designed run. I, for one, am happy with that. Just because why give away free hits? Different conversation.
Why aren't they running him more? One was a scramble. He had what, 3 carries?
He had 3 carries. One of them was that awful draw that if they listed it as a sack, I wouldn't be surprised. One of them was that quarterback designed run where somebody blows a block immediately. And then he had his scramble. And I think that's his 3 total carries. Because on that 4th touchdown, he manipulates the end man on the line of scrimmage and just puts him in a blender. Like Kyler Murray's him, where the guy just ends up standing still and lets Fields do whatever he wants to back there. That was sick. That was sick, Nick. And then the Josh Allen dump off touchdown to Cole Kmet. I mean, I even like the wide open streak to Cole Kmet. How do you not? Or the DJ Moore sweet touchdown down the sidelines. There were a lot of baller throws in this game. One of my favorites was when Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore are running a play that I still don't really get why it's run at the NFL level. It seems far too simple to me, where you have DJ Moore on the outside and he just outside releases up the sidelines, and then Darnell Mooney runs an out route. And if the corner sits in the flat, you just throw it over the top. I cannot believe this actually got somebody open, but Denver's defense will do that. And
that's that cover 2 space. That's that hole.
It is, but like, man, is that not obvious? Like, you're really going to let DJ Moore run right by you without a safety?
And Surtain drove on that flat route so hard too. It made it bigger. I was like, wow.
So much. And I mean, DJ Moore, I will never, ever get tired, Nick. No matter who's throwing the ball, I'll never get tired of watching DJ Moore snare something like he did on that first catch of the game and suddenly go into run after catch mode and make you believe in straight up miracles. You know what I mean? Like,
he's a good, and again, that transition, because it's not about how athletic you are. It's about how quickly you make decisions. And he quickly makes that decision from receiver to runner and accelerates. And it just makes a big difference. Like he's not a 4.3 guy. No. But on the field, he's fast, which I'd rather have that.
And Tyler Scott's reverses were fun. I bet you the offensive line plays well. Helps when you go up against like the Charmin Bears on the defensive line.
And Nate Davis is back.
He probably looked solid. It's always tough for me to tell about how the offensive line looked because I'm staring at the ball like any normal person.
Well, so let's talk about that real quick.
Yes.
Offensive line plus tight ends plus blasting game. He was still sacked 4 times. And of those, how many of those are you going to put on Justin Fields?
To be honest with you, I didn't think the sacks were a problem today. Like the main thing, it's almost like I have a brain clock. Oh God, that is just terrible. I almost want to be doing that. Like I've got this, just my eye, I guess, like I test all the sacks that I look at. And there's a point where I feel like, okay, we've held the ball too long. We got to move. And I didn't think we got there on most of this today. In fact, Fields played so on time that for the first 3 quarters, you didn't notice any issues on offensive line, even though they were there. Like
there was pressure. The one time Borum didn't even pick up the guy off the edge. He came inside to help on, I think, the D tackle or the end who went to the B gap. It's like, what are you doing? And then there was the one off the edge, I think blasting him. He just went right by him.
There's one where Cody Whitehair, I think it was, got smoked up the middle, and Justin Fields got hammered as he released the ball to Cole Kmet late in the game. Like, there were plenty of moments where we looked like a more than serviceable pocket passer, and we were helping out our offensive line. What did you think about the offensive line? Because you sound like you got a stronger take than I do.
Well, I thought that they didn't play great. That's the thing, is like, the line that we talked about this. Denver had the least amount of pressure in the NFL, which is shocking compared to Chicago. And they still messed up. And it's not even just like I got beat. Like they just like messed up who's going to get this guy multiple times. And I know because it's somewhat makeshift, even if you have Nate Davis back, which gives me a little hope with maybe Tevin Jenkins is back next week because this is the IR, right? He can come back. And I saw reports of him working out already. I know it's a short week, but if he comes back, he put Cody back at center. I feel so much better because we all know who I think should not be on the field ever. And then you look at that 4th down call, and I just see him diving at a linebacker, and they got penetration. Get him off the field, please.
It's so tough for Lucas Patrick. That's the nice way of putting it. Like it's bad tape, and it does not help that Sam Mustipher went to the Ravens organization and became a different man. Like I don't know what they have going on in Baltimore. It's probably good coaching, but it wasn't this way in Chicago, which is just wild to think about. But man, okay, here's a question. We are at the 40-minute mark. Let's move on to next steps because the game happened, right? And we're going to know a lot more once we get the All-22. You're 0-4. What now? Like, hopefully you get Tevin back for Washington. But what now, Nick?
Let's do one. Can I do one thing before this?
Yes.
Chase Claypool. We have to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, we have to talk about it.
Okay. I think they have to make somebody the scapegoat. So Chase Claypool was the first one. We're not going to fire Luke Getsy. We're not going to fire this person. We're just going to inactivate him because that guy is the problem. And honestly, has he played great? No. You look at PFF grades, he's slightly below Darnell Mooney. He's better than Velus Jones. Like, you could talk about attitude, which we don't know. He played a lot better after week 1. He hasn't played amazing, but he's played a lot better. And what did he really say? Hey, Robert, do you think the Bears are using their players in the best way possible?
All right, I'm going to let me clear my throat and get this get nice and warmed up. No. And that's all he said.
Justin Fields says it. Oh, right. Well, he's probably right. Claypool says it. Bench that guy. Get rid of him. He's a boss. Terrible. Blah, 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 blah.
And you know what? Up 28-7. Yeah. Claypool must have just been like spearing everybody like with a knife. Right. Because, oh my gosh, team rules. Like it's all Claypool's fault. I mean, I'll still tell you that based on the Justin Fields that we know and love, Nick, it makes a lot more sense that ESB out there would draw coverage without Fields really needing to look at him, right? So if it helps increase the diversity of your running game, because Claypool is going to give you, like, if I was going to be as kind as possible to Claypool, a motivated Chase Claypool is a plus, maybe even a double plus passing asset, but he's still a minus run asset, right? Like, you're not putting Chase Claypool on the lead blocker in your formation feeling great about it. Maybe he could crack somebody because when he does hit his block for you, he hits it really hard. But man, Nick, his whiff rate is insane. And you need somebody to at least lose with dignity on some of those runs.
But tell me this, okay? So look at the group, okay? Moore and Mooney untouchable, right? I think Tyler Scott-ish too, but you have Tyler Scott, Velus Jones, and Trent Taylor all doing basically the same thing.
Oh, you don't have to argue with me because I would have probably found somebody else to make inactive and just had all of them be active and played Claypool a solid never. Because to me, the moment you list him as inactive, now it's a story. Now you've got Ian Rappaport leaking that he's going to be inactive, and also Tyson Bagent is the QB2. And I can guarantee you that nobody didn't tell him both of those names, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not like Ian Rappaport looked at the inactives list and went, hey, Tyson Bagent's the QB2. No, somebody just told him, Rap, tweet this out. And he did. And I'm with, I think, what you're driving at, where it's like EQ being in apparently meant that the run game got a lot healthier. The calls got a lot better, which is a dangerous thing to say on a post-game podcast because I know that everybody always wants to criticize play calling when stuff doesn't work. But
but second half got conservative, right? So we can still go there.
But at least they were running the ball well for the most part. They just did what normal offenses do. This, to me, Nick, needs to be discussed a little more often. Holding calls are inevitable. There is no heavy rushing attack that won't eventually hold. It's how it goes.
I saw more holds that weren't called. So
yes, because the Bears aren't even that great a team. But
they'll get better with Tevin out there. He's a very good run blocker.
Sure hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
so the fact that the Bears were able to get so multiple with their run game was huge. I mean, it's a large part of the reason that the Bears, you can tell an offense is humming when you actually pull off a wide receiver reverse and you don't immediately lose yards on it, right?
Yeah. No, he was good. He bubbled back. He did it well. But here's the thing that I'm getting at with Claypool, okay?
Get there
Because he is a top 4 receiver on this team. That I
easily.
don't think that's debatable.
No,
When that last drive, would you have Chase Claypool out there, or would you have Equanimeous St. Brown out there?
I mean, I guess it depends. Like I'm more just saying if you're a
Yeah,
coach and you have a huge problem with Chase Claypool, then yeah, no, you might not want Chase. I would but
I would.
I would hope that we have an organization that can keep Chase Claypool bought in.
Right.
Organizations all across the league have characters to deal with. You're telling me, Nick, let's make a direct 1-to-1 comparison. Okay. The Buffalo Bills today, they handled business against a very good Miami Dolphins team. Would you agree? Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Oh, yeah. That was a game. I was like, dude, they had a game plan. I'm excited to look at that film.
Can't wait. In terms of the diva scale, who is a bigger diva? Stephon Diggs or Chase Claypool?
Not even close, Stephon Diggs.
It's Stephon Diggs. And I mean, to be
Yep.
fair, the guy's got more talent to match.
Yep.
Who is playing, who is still running his for the love of the game routes, who is still blocking when he needs to, who is still doing all the little things that a freaking defensive head coach needs his diva superstar receiver to do to make sure that the offense can score 41 against a very good Miami team. Stephon
Yep.
Diggs is.
Stephon Diggs.
I don't think that it needs to be some exclusive mark on Chase Claypool's reputation that the Bears can't get him in line, because there's a lot of coaches all across the league that have to deal with characters on DB, on linebacker, on wide receiver. And when you are unable to get through to them, and suddenly Tevin Jenkins isn't showing up to practice, let's not forget, and you're unable to get through to them, and suddenly Chase Claypool doesn't want to come to the game, I got to ask, Nick, what does it say about our leadership? Like,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this much. So me as a coach, I think that head coaches have put players in my position group or had me coach them because they know that I can deal with that type of player more often than other coaches. And that means it's coaching. Like that's all like you have to get a relationship with the guy. And again, like what does he want? He probably wants more targets his way. He wants to be successful, right? Like everyone wants to be successful. So you just have to make it work that way and get them to buy in, which means it is coaching. And he's had 800 yards, 2 different seasons, 860 plus yards, 2 different seasons. And you're telling me that he can even be active in a game when you need the win? I mean, that is, again, we talked about it scapegoating, but okay, for time purposes,
yes.
do you want to go to the CW talk now?
No, well, okay, hang on. Before we
Okay.
get to Caleb Williams, let's back up, okay? Because we can bleed there, right? But like, okay, so let's just start at 0-4, right? We already tried blaming Chase Claypool, and just like I do, Nick, Chase Claypool's on his Twitter burner account talking smack about the Bears coaches right now and laughing his butt off. There's nobody that thinks that's funnier. And the worst part is he's going to let people know tomorrow on Monday. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to show up if he doesn't text people outright to be like, that is hilarious. You guys are hilarious. This is the kind of game, if I'm reading this correctly, you tell me, that can take a locker room in a rough shape and make it a toxic locker room.
Oh,
right.
Oh, easily. And again, that's you can't just say, well, this week we need to focus more. Like that stuff just doesn't work because no one believes it at this point. You've lost how many games in a row now? And your message isn't hitting home. But it's Thursday night game this week. So I don't know that you can make a change in your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the game.
No
right?
way.
Right. Yeah.
And you almost got the fourth quarter off, and then you didn't. And so your bodies were almost way more rested than a Washington team that also was in a bare knuckle brawl today against the Philadelphia Eagles. But instead, they're going to come hungry because I'm pretty sure they lost, right?
The Eagles?
Fact check me on that. The Commanders lost, right?
Oh, let me check. Yeah, I think so.
I
Here, hold
think they
on.
did. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, 34-31. Yep.
really tight game, as I understand it. So the Commanders are going to come back home.
Overtime.
Come back home. What'd you say?
Overtime.
Overtime, man. Even more so. Like they're going to come back home and they're going to want to get right, just like every other team playing Chicago for an awfully long time. I'll ask you this. What would you do? Is this the week to fire Getsy? Or do you say it's Thursday? I can't. But if we're 0-4 or 0-5 after this, I'm thinking about it. Like we've already
I don't
started with the Chase Claypool scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
We're already
Yep.
beginning to scapegoat, which is a problem. Most teams don't scapegoat this fast.
Yes.
Like, so we're already flagging. We lost again. We lost in a really embarrassing fashion. I believe, if memory serves, the longest losing streak in Bears history is still active with this loss. What do you, Nick Whalen, change?
I don't think you can change anything because of the short week.
There you go. I mean, I kind of don't think you can either. And the problem is that now I think the situation just gets that much more toxic because, again, a game that should have been the trophy case game for Justin Fields should have been his, like, if he doesn't already have a game ball, this would have been like that game ball game that could have, not even playing around, literally turned his career around.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, this is one of those momentum games where people could have looked back and gone, that's it. But instead, what?
So no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Instead, I wouldn't be surprised if Fields takes from this that in this uniform, it's never going to be enough. Like, I mean, Fields is a competitor. Fields is a professional athlete. I am a guy sitting in a chair talking into a microphone, like multiple states away. So I will not pretend to know Justin Fields, but I just would be shocked, Nick, after all the stuff he's been through in this organization, if this might not be his personal end of the road. Like, not with football, but there's a point where every quarterback goes, I don't want to play for this organization anymore. You know what I'm saying?
No, well, you think he's done?
No, like, not that he's going to quit on the team. Oh, man, I'm not explaining this well. Just that, like, I don't know how many times Fields can scrape himself off the pavement, get back up and say, no, this next one's the good one. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but I also think that I think he can. He can. I don't know that Eberflus can.
I don't know that Eberflus can, and I'm just gonna say,
keeping the team together.
Well,
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we haven't talked about Ryan Poles yet, right? Your team's 0-4. Nick, since 1992 or since 1990, would you like to guess how many teams have been 0-4 and then made the playoffs?
Oh, 2?
1. Good guess. And so, especially if you go 0-5, which I don't need to look this up, but there's no way, because the 1992 Chargers finished 11-5. So I would be blown away if they went 0-5 and then won the next 11 of their games. You got to start thinking about fire sale. Like, you have to start thinking about it. And if I'm Atlanta, I'm giving the Bears a phone call. And this is the kind of game that might have driven Fields' price up to the point where Poles would think about it. Not saying that he should, not saying that he will. I am literally talking out of my butt, Nick, just talking out loud. But if I'm Arthur Smith on that plane ride home from London, watching these games, watching Justin Fields roll left, roll right, and throw strikes from the pocket after my quarterback blew that game in London. And the Jets tonight, if I'm watching this game, like the tape of this game, Fields rolls left, rolls right, scrambles, I'm thinking, that kid is so much better than what I've got. And I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, one, that's a good thing, right? That he's proven he's not, busting Fields.
Yeah.
He can't throw the ball. Like, he just proved that. And he has, and we've known that. He's had a rough stretch. And I had this tweet, by the way. I thought this was pretty interesting. Rookie year, weeks 2 and 3, he struggled against Cleveland. Remember the 9-sack game?
Yes.
And then got better. Last year, weeks 2 and 3, we know like Houston and really started terrible. Off bad, then better. This year, week 4, better. So like maybe he does get better, but would you trade him
I don't know. I'd probably listen to the offers, man. Right now, to hint at what, or to go full into what we were talking about earlier. If the season ended today and I have pick number 1 and 2, yeah, I'm picking a quarterback, and eventually Caleb Williams would be playing or Drake
Yep.
May, whatever. Like, I'm not going to hitch my wagon to players that I haven't studied. It's probably Caleb. I imagine it's Caleb, but
Yeah.
you get it. And so if the Bears don't win their way out of, and because Bryce Young up and gave the game away to the Minnesota Vikings, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. It is not often that you throw 2 back-breaking red zone interceptions, one of which gets returned for a 99-yard touchdown and lose the game and win the game. Like, it's not often you throw those interceptions and you somehow win the game, but Bryce Young sure helped with that critical sack fumble that just turned into a scoop and score the Vikings were able to ride out. So the Bears are a comfortable pole position for both 1 and 2. Like, this is a great week if you're into tanking all the way to the bottom. And Nick, I don't know where that puts me, because to me, what I'll say, I bet you I already said this on the pod, but I'll say it again. I'm so out on Flus that I cannot imagine not firing Flus. And the moment I fire Matt Eberflus, I assume I have consigned Justin Fields to whatever fate that is.
Yep.
If that makes sense. I like Fields. I might trade Fields because I like him, to be honest. Like, where if I could get a 2nd-round pick, if I could get a 3rd-round pick plus another 3rd-round pick in the future, like, at least I can say I got something in return to the owner while sending Fields to a place where he may actually get coached. Because like you're talking about, how do these slow starts keep happening? Whose fault is this? I don't know, right? But it's weird that here in the 3rd year, we're exhibiting our rookie tendencies again until suddenly the light comes on in week 4. But I'm going to go ahead and guess that you probably wouldn't trade Justin Fields, right?
Well, it's going to depend. I wouldn't give him away for 2/3. I wouldn't give him away for a second. I just wouldn't. I mean, he just went for 335 and had a perfect game almost and 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
Like honestly, what if this is, again, not this perfect? I mean, he did throw a pick and, the fumble, but let's say he has 5 more games of over 300 yards passing this year, and he's a poor version of Justin Herbert, who has a terrible defense and he's throwing, and you still end up with some top picks. Do you still go quarterback?
He'd have to sustain it for a while, right? Just because at this point, we went up against a solid Green Bay defense and we struggled. And then we went up against a good Tampa Bay defense. We played our best not week 4 game. And then we went up against one of the better defenses on the schedule, the Chiefs, who I think everybody just assumes is not a very good defense because their offense is so good. How could their defense possibly be good? They're a very good defense, especially this year, man. Like, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but like Chet McDuffie, like some of the players that have taken those second steps is like,
and Spagnuolo, what he's doing.
So good. And we got smoked just as an offensive unit. This game rules. You got to do something similar against the Commanders. And the Commanders are not going to make it easy. Like, that defense can ball. And if we go out there and we get shut out, like, I would argue, Nick, the doomsday clock was at 11:59 coming into the game. Do you know how the doomsday clock works? Am I talking past you?
No, go ahead.
So, like, envision a clock to midnight. And on midnight, doomsday happens, right? And so doomsday or if the doomsday is at 11:59, or if we're at DEFCON 2, so we're not at DEFCON 1 yet, right? We are on high alert. And this is the best you can play in a game that you lose. I mean, literally, man. Like, this is as good as you could statistically play. 132 passer rating. But we lost. We can't move up the doomsday clock, can we? That's a real question. Can you have more faith in Fields after a game where we go cold at the wrong time for a lot of very valid reasons? Like, the offensive coordinator kind of took the juice out of the offense. We didn't throw that much. And we did throw with anticipation right there at the end on a mismatch that we liked. But the ball got picked. Who's to blame? How do we know? Right?
To me, like, I have more confidence in Fields right now. I think every Bears fan has more confidence in Fields right now, like placement, all that kind of stuff. And that's the tough part. And you're right, is because if Flus is out, which if you look at the Bears last year and this year, the biggest problem is defense. People talk about like, what's Justin Fields' record? They were 32nd in defense last year. They're dog shit this year. Like the defense,
they may have bumped the Broncos.
Problem.
They may finally be 31st and not 32nd, just because the Bears smoked the Broncos defense today.
Yeah. And you're right though, because then if you there's a couple of things with this. One is this is year 3 for Fields, and so the rookie contract, right? If you want to reset that and get that cheap contract, but if you decide to go rookie quarterback, I mean Claypool's gone. Do you bring Mooney back? Like you think of all the guys that are gone. I mean, you're probably cleaning up a lot of guys. Whitehair's gone. Eddie Jackson's gone. A lot
of lockers. Like, I would argue that you're going to try to fire sale a lot of people. Like, you're going to see what you can get for Eddie Jackson. All right, so Bears fans, I'm about to say some drastic stuff, and know that any player that I mention in this conversation, I have to like, because if I don't like them, no other team will. Just being so plain with you. Is somebody swooping in, offering a trade contract for Elijah Hicks? No, but they might for Eddie Jackson. And his value is limited because he's got an ankle issue. I'm going to call Miami tomorrow and say, hey, I got this corner. I bet you want him. And then if they return the call, I'm leaking that they did to Ian Rappaport so that Dallas calls me and ups the ante. And I can get the two of them. I'm not even playing, man. Like,
I know.
Dallas got smoked by Josh Dobbs just after losing Trayvon Diggs. You think they wouldn't consider getting into a bidding war over an objectively good corner in a contract year? Like, who by the way, he's not on the, I don't know, he's not on this, like, he wasn't on the field for this game. But if he was, chances are it turns out differently, and anybody knows it because he's good. And so I look at trading Deontay Foreman. I don't know why we haven't played him. Like, I thought he was going to get cut. This is why he got replaced immediately, Nick.
Yep. Well, and Roshan didn't get a lot of yards today. His efficiency was a lot worse. But I agree with you. I think like if that's the case, well, Carolina gave up a 2, a 4, and a 6 for Sam Darnold.
Right.
If you can't get that for Justin Fields, and he again contract controlled for 2 more years,
I would love it.
You're easily getting that. Like, to me, I would get a 1, or I would get, and that's the people that will like miss out on a top 5 quarterback now. You could get him, or you're including like Philly's 4 that we got for trading down 1 pick, the Jalen Carter trade, and Fields, and then get like a 1. You know what I mean? Like,
so I know you aren't going to care about this. I'm just going to guarantee you right now, Nick, you are not going to care about this. But I always assume that NFL GMs are going to take whatever unfair verbal argument path leads them to the best value for whoever they're trading for. And Darnold had a year where he went 7-6. So if I tried to say, Darnold's a loser, he can't win games, right? You'd say, no, you're wrong. He had that 2019 season where he actually won more games than not. Pay me. Like, what is it? The F you pay me meme?
Right.
With Fields, the record thing is going to start to kick in at some point because we do not win a lot of ball games. But also, I do think that people with a brain, lovingly speaking, are going to look back and say, well, okay, not all of these losses are like his fault. I mean, go back to 2019. I would argue that Mitch's entire career was built off the back of a defense where if he hung 14 on a team, that was a win more times than it should have been. Like,
yeah.
We're not even playing games here, Nick.
Right.
Like,
right.
You won a lot of games. 17 to something, 20 to something. We scored 20. Man, that was a banner day for that Bears offense.
No, I agree.
And
we all remember the Tampa game.
I thought we were trending that way. Because, again, like, these Bears receivers were so open. Like, Fields was balling. In particular, that throw where he rolled to his left and hit DJ Moore as whichever corner was on him. I think it was Surtain at the time. Just, like, fell off him as if it was this, like, cinematic moment. That ruled. That throw's not easy. There were a lot of throws, like the throw down the sidelines to Moore. That was not the throw isn't easy. Also, he's wide open. And
Yep.
I'm not going to ever take that away from him. I'm not. But I may mute my excitement just a smidge, if that makes sense. Not
Mhm.
because it wasn't good, but because great looks a little different than wow, that was really good and very easy to do. Like, because that's where you start to almost. I'm not about to tell you that I liked Getsy's game plan, even though it kind of ruled, because I'm still so mad about the first 3 weeks. Does that make
I know.
sense?
I know. And well, that's the thing is like you fire him off of like a 471-yard explosion on offense or flu. So you have to wait till after Washington. I just can't remember a quarterback, a team being bad and trading their quarterback and tanking.
Oh, I'm
Like
pretty sure
the
it's
same season, I
unprecedented.
can't remember it.
I'm pretty sure it's unprecedented because normally you already know you're tanking. Normally you already signed Curtis Painter and put out all the media you'd need to
Yeah.
just do it, right? But
Mhm.
this is I just put up a YouTube thing about this. Everybody starts with the plan to make the playoffs. You're 0-4. Plans might change if you're 0-5. And I don't know who's going to change the plans. I don't know, Nick. I really don't. But that game against Minnesota in week 6, that game against the Raiders in week 7. If, not that you should, if you come out of those games 0-7, you are in pole position, baby. You
Oh man.
are
Well, you
like,
still might be with Carolina's pick either way.
you might. Like, truly, this Carolina team, insofar as long as they ride Bryce Young, they are doing Chicago a favor. Like,
Yep.
it is going to be different. The best part about it, man, Nick, you're about to get me rolling. Like, the hardest part about talking about Ryan Poles right now is that there are a bunch of signings that look objectively terrible. Like, signings, trades, etc. Why did we sign Tremaine Edmonds after trading away a better linebacker in Roquan Smith? Don't even go there. Let's just take that as if it's a face value statement that is absolutely dead on, right? Well,
Yep.
you could argue that's a clear Flus signing. Head coaches get a lot of sway in these things. Did we
Yeah.
listen to the play caller series? Did we hear about how much say Kyle Shanahan has involved in like which players they acquire? There's tons of this defense that if it doesn't work, you can point at Matt Eberflus and say, his fault, not our guy, and get away with
Yep.
it. The Chase Claypool trade doesn't work. Whatever. Move on. Bad picks or bad moves happen all the time. Nick, the only reason that we are where we are is twofold. Number one, because Ryan Poles didn't trade his first for Chris Jones. Like, he didn't make that move, whatever that looks like, and we kept all our draft assets. But number two, oh man, and this is the part that would excite me the most if I was you, and I bet you already are. Ryan Poles created this Carolina problem. You know what I'm saying? Because they had a guy. They had a guy that was going to let them put together a pretty good offense for a rookie quarterback. And Ryan Poles took him away, right? Like, in trading for DJ Moore, you created this team that can't score. And they weren't going to have the opportunity to score.
Yeah.
They were going to keep pick 39, but they picked Jonathan Mingo because there wasn't a great receiver in that slot. Like,
Well, I mean that part of it's good, but like the other part that so now we're kind of talking about Poles, right?
sure.
Like I personally I like when Poles speaks. I like a lot of the moves that he
Agreed.
made, but Justin Jones, Lucas Patrick, so far Nate Davis, Edmonds, Edwards, you can go on the list. Claypool trade.
If I was Ryan Poles, I would own the Chase Claypool trade, and I would blame every other one of those moves on my coordinators and head coach, and I think I could get away with it. I could blanket statement say, Tanyan, Lucas Patrick, Mercedes Lewis, where you think we got them all? George. Like, what uniform did they all wear? That's Getsy. That ain't me.
They're double agents.
Like, as much as anything, I would just say, like, no, they wanted those guys. They told me they would work. And what am I going to do? Say no, run it my way. I'm the GM. I'm not on the coaching field.
Right.
And then all these linebackers that we signed, Matt thought it would work. Matt thought he could get these guys gaming. That's not my fault. Like, again, I'm not saying that you, fan, or you, Nick, has to agree. But I'm thinking, if as Ryan Poles, these kinds of games actually make me look better because the roster doesn't look like the problem. The coaching does, right? Yeah. Like, the roster looked, say what you will, not like the worst team in football today. And I thought they were the better team outright. But
well, here's another part with this too. Talking about coaching, the same thing. They got 1 sack. We all saw the sack. They got 1 sack, and they had, I think, 4 QB hits on Wilson, who scrambles around a lot and draws a lot of pressures himself.
Like a maniac.
Like that's so, even with trying to blitz, like you can't generate any pressure. Like, come on, there's a schematic issue here.
Oh yeah, but that's a known.
That's so bad that it's known.
And I'll tell you, to me, so I'm not proud of this, Nick. I'm not proud of this at all. But the Bears were up 28-7. And I had this epiphany. Actually, it was more like a nightmare. And I will never look you in the eyes and tell you I'm glad that things turned out the way they did. But I got really scared, up 28-7, because I said, on one hand, this could be the game that Justin Fields turns it around. He looks like he's balling. But this is the Bears. Bad things happen to us. This could be the game that catalyzes going 5-12 and the draft picks dropping because at the time Carolina was winning too. And we end up picking it like 4-7, maybe 8. And Justin Fields stays the quarterback because what are we going to do? Draft QB3? Like if Shadur Sanders goes back, we're looking at JJ McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, whoever is QB3. We'll probably not like that as much as we like Justin Fields. So then we draft a left tackle, Olu Fashanu, and we draft Jared Verse with, what is this, 4 and 7. I could just see it, right? Yeah. Because we'll say to ourselves, well, okay, come on, a blue chip tackle. It's a bummer that we didn't get Marvin Harrison, but like, how do we pass on this? And then going down a little in the order, sweet, we get an edge rusher. Why would we take QB4? Because QB3 is gone at that point. And instead, let's take this. Fields plays year 4, looks solid doing it with a brand new staff, and we are the Giants. Like, to a T. Because he's going to get extended at that point. I don't think the new org with a brand new head coach would pick up his 5th-year option. And I hope that Justin Fields would surpass Daniel Jones. But to me, when you watch Giants games, Jones isn't the issue right now, at the very least.
No, but you're Darnell Writing or the tackle for Penn State. I can't say his whole name. You're gonna Evan Neal one of them. Come on, don't do that, Robert.
I hope not. I mean, I hope you get 2 sick bookends plus DJ Moore. Like that plan could work. It really could work. It wouldn't be exactly the Giants, but like there's not a lot of easy ways for the Bears to climb out of this. But bottoming out makes a lot of sense. Like, because you should theoretically have your pick of the litter of head coaches because the draft assets and the cap assets that you have are so strong. And man, Nick, I mean, gosh, I know everybody would take a Jamar Chase, right? But if I gave you the opportunity to have T. Higgins and Tristan Wirfs to start your offense with, man, that's rock solid, isn't it? Because tackle is such a boring position to draft. I love offensive line. Like, you have to build through the trenches. But like, nobody likes drafting offensive line because nearly any time you're going to draft the offensive lineman, right? Like, there's a cooler player on the board. Like, it could be Darnell Wright or it could be JSN. Everybody just gets super excited about whatever the wide receiver option is. Following me so far?
Well, no, and I think part of it is it depends on what your base level is with Braxton Jones already there, you know? So if we're going to go down this dream scenario, right?
Sure.
Let me go down further with you.
Okay? Go down further.
So this is we make the quarterback change, okay?
When?
And we go with Caleb. And we trade Fields, which is sad.
I thought you were about to say Bajan, and I was like, listen.
No. But all that's dependent on the head coach, right?
Right.
Okay. A couple years ago, there's a quarterback that transfers, or he gets recruited and goes to a school. The coach leaves. Quarterback follows. Now, if that coach comes to Chicago and he gets his quarterback, what if Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams are they are a pair?
What do you think about Riley? Give me your full thoughts on Riley.
Oh, I would love it. I would love it. He is so creative with the things that he does schematically that, I mean, I know people are excited about like Ben Johnson, and what Ben Johnson can do with, and this is not disrespectful, what he can do with Jared Goff, who Jared Goff is a limited quarterback. He's man, this is going to sound disrespectful. It's just not. He's Brock Purdy-ish, where they're like they have a limited physical gifts, but they're good with anticipation and they're accurate and they throw
Right.
to the middle of the field well. Like that's what they do. They can't do everything.
Right.
But if you give a guy like that, it doesn't matter if it's Ben Johnson or Lincoln Riley, but if you give those guys a Caleb Williams type who is like can do everything and is creative, and you have another top pick, that's the one thing that gets me excited. It breaks
Yep.
my heart for this guy, Justin Fields. I love him, but if
It
you could
sucks for him.
but if you can get Lincoln Riley, think of that. That's a name I haven't heard anyone say. But what if you're like, okay, I'm going to take a shot in the NFL. Man, you're telling me I can get this quarterback that I've known for
The whole
years
time.
and I've developed?
I'll tell you, my favorite part about looking into the future is that if the Bears bought, okay, so nightmare scenario, even worse than the one I said earlier, is that the Bears win just enough games to where Justin Fields saves his job and Fluce's, and we just pin it all on Getsy, and we act like everything's fine. And a new offensive coordinator comes in. It's obviously not like a lateral move, so you're not going to get like a Shane Waldron. You're not going to get a Kellen Moore. You're not going to get any of these fun, cool names. You're just going to get some other guy, right? And so he comes in, nothing changes, everything's bad. That's the like true nightmare scenario. The good news is that if the Bears do bottom out, I don't want to make anybody cheer against the team, but it's a hard hire to screw up because, and I understand those are bad words in Chicago because we somehow found the only offensive guru that wasn't really good in Matt Nagy. But you look at the names that I've seen 4 major names. Okay. I've seen Lincoln Riley. He's like 3rd on this list, but I'm just going down top to bottom.
Okay.
I've seen Kellen Moore. That's fine. Like pass heavy, uses everything within the scheme that the Chargers can bring to maximize the passing attack and weaponize all the gifts that Herbert has. Ben Johnson, certainly not bad. Plenty like, oh, we've only got one staff because where Kellen Moore has 2 jobs. Like Ben Johnson is under an offensive head coach. So how much is Campbell? How much?
But
is
we've also seen Kellen Moore ball out in college. Like I was a fan of him at Boise State.
Right. Exactly. Like with Moore, you don't know if he's with any of these guys. You don't know that they're going to like be that head coach leader, but you hope so. Like if they're going to be the hire, you hope that they impress in interviews. And then Shane Waldron, who's a Shanahan acolyte. I think technically he's a McVay acolyte who is low-key balling with what they've got going on in Seattle. So any of those 4 names are fine by me. Like, especially the more we do this, Nick, because you've seen more head coaching hire cycles than I have, unfortunately. Every time we do this, it really dawns on me that I don't know what the recipe is because I don't get to talk to these guys.
Well, let's talk about that quickly.
Go for it.
Here's why the recipe is harder than people think. You're good at, and this is at any job, you're good at job A.
You're good at sales.
Whatever. Right?
You sell
sales.
like a maniac.
Sales. Yep. Yeah. I can put Robert anywhere and he can
sell it all.
Bananas to whatever. Some of this like bananas. A terrible example. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
But now you have to be a manager of salespeople.
Now you don't sell.
Very different kind of job. And that's why people get this wrong. They're like, man, he was a great coordinator. They're always coordinators almost every time.
Right.
Why can't they be great as a head coach? Because it's a different job. That's why Dan Quinn is a great defensive coordinator, but not a great head coach, even though he went to the Super Bowl and lost.
That's where it's not a hire that I think either you and I are going to champion. But if the Bears did go in the direction of the guy whose name starts with H and ends with Arbaugh, I would get it. Just because that's one of the few people where you can actually vouch for their management, where you can say, this is a manager. I don't know what his schemes are going to be. This is a manager. Nick, why do you and I get so, just to make sure we put this out there and explain it, why do you and I get so excited about coordinators? Because we can't guarantee what scheme the Bears are going to try to run, but through somebody's scheme, you can get a sense for how they think and whether they're caught up with the rest of football itself. And college, in many cases, is the ultimate football laboratory, as I have come to learn it. Like, that is where you have 3 years to incubate your scheme with these players. Redshirt year, freshman year, sophomore year, most of these guys are on the bench. So then junior year, they come in, they've had 3 years of reps in whatever system you're running, and you can just run some crazy, complex stuff with all kinds of reads and all kinds of calls. And in the pros, you don't get to do that because you got to install this defense over an off season. Or your offense in the course of an off season. And if it doesn't work immediately, it doesn't work.
Well, and And I mean, I would say even high school too. In high school and college, you can be very creative with what you run
Totally.
schematically because you have more room for error. There's more separation. There's more space. They're
Right.
worse athletes than the NFL. NFL, you can't. It's more you have to do it or you're going to get fired.
And what I heard about high school, and the only reason high school didn't make it into this, is because sometimes in high school, the scheme ultimately just revolves. Every coach would tell you that they will adapt their scheme to their talent. It's no
Oh yeah,
more blatant in high school than when, if you've got a Justin Fields, it does not matter what you think about him. That kid is playing quarterback for you because he will run around everybody.
yes, yeah.
Like your
Oh, I've
quarter,
seen it.
I'm sure
I've been annoyed. I'd be like, all they have is one good player. You can't stop the one player. Like that's all they have.
I'm
I'm like, yeah,
sure.
just stop him. No,
And in college, that doesn't happen as often. Where like Baylor will get steamrolled by Texas University, but it's because their line is really strong. Quinn Ewers is really good. Xavier Worthy really rules. But it's not as it's not as like extreme as you see it in high
no.
school. What I've seen, where somebody will take a dump off pass 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, break 7 tackles, and end up in the end zone.
I here's a fun story. So I've coached one player in the NFL, which is cool. And I faced guys that are, going to be in the
Right.
NFL this day in terms of high school and college as well. But in high school, I'll remember this. So Alex Erickson is the kid that again, I had a really small part in his life. I'm really proud of him. He's a nice kid. He's done well and he's with the Chargers now.
Awesome.
But I'll never forget this. He was a quarterback DB and he was returning punts. And there was this punt that just like gets sailed and like bouncing around. It's like near the sideline, and I'm on the headset upstairs. I'm like, don't pick that up. And when the other coach is like, well, let's just see what he does with it. Juke, 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 boom, down the sideline, touchdown. I'm like, oh my gosh, like he can do things other guys can't do. So that's exactly what you're
Right.
talking about.
And so my thought is, when it comes to these, circling all the way back, when it comes to these head coaching hire, if you ever wonder, well, why do they like Shane Waldron versus Jim Harbaugh, or I don't know, whatever name we're talking about at the time? Why do we like Lincoln Riley, but not this, or that guy? To me, it comes down to, you look at Sean McVay, you look at Kyle Shanahan, you look at Matt LaFleur, you look at Mike McDaniel. I'm sure we could think of another name, but I don't really have the patience to do it right now. And you can see the way that they think. Sean McVay isn't married to this McVay scheme. Take a look at what he's running with Stafford, then take a look at what he's running with, or what he ran with Goff. Tell me they're the same. They aren't. And you see somebody who really is molding everything he does around his players. In two simple words, Nick, he gets it. And so I want a head coach that gets it and is able to bring a staff that lets them teach what they want to teach without the restrictions that the old world used to like that the old world used to impose. Let me use an example. I'll always wonder how Matt Nagy would have been able to do in Chicago had he been hired when that rule came into existence that offensive coordinator became a promotion from assistant head coach.
Yeah.
Like, had Matt Nagy been hired where he could have poached Mike Kafka and there was nothing that Andy Reid could have done about it, would things have changed? I don't know. But if you're telling me that Mark Helfrich was his first choice at offensive coordinator,
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to disagree with you. You know what I mean?
And that's the one thing that's interesting too is I can't remember who I listened to from The Athletic, but they talked about how people that come over. So Nagy's one of them. A few other people, like their first head coaching job coming over as a coordinator, they run basically the same scheme because it's what they know. And then over the years, they can slowly start implementing different layers or formations or plays off of it. Because when you get hired, you really don't have a ton of time because you get hired, there's free agency, there's the draft, then there's rookie mini camp, there's mini camp, and then there's going to be training camp and like a month or two later. Like you can't be completely diverse. Like you can't be like, hey, we're a zone heavy scheme from McVay. And all of a sudden I'm running gap this, like
Right.
whoever else runs gap schemes. Like you're probably not going to be that different. And also they joked, they said sometimes they have the same verbiage. They call the formations the same, the motions the same, the plays, because they don't have enough time. And it's kind of what you know. So I agree with you. Like it's going to be tough because that's why I like a Lincoln Riley. You're getting a guy that's going to come in that he can poach his guys and what he's going to get called. Like you won't have the same, I think, scouting report on someone like him as you would for like NFL type guys.
And usually, emphasis on usually, for crying out loud, Nick, when you bring in your guys, like usually the verbiage is clean. Like normally you don't end up with this Allen Williams thing, I guess is what I'm really
Right.
trying to say. Where,
Right.
sure, everything surrounding the Bears right now. I mean, like, let's just be really real about it, Nick. Everything surrounding the Bears right now is overwhelmingly negative. Like, if it's not turning toxic, it's
Yeah.
because it's already toxic.
Right.
And
And Claypool was just the start of that. It's like, oh, Claypool, like everyone, like, pitchforks and coming at. It's like,
I mean, have you seen that like meme about the iceberg? You know what I'm talking about? Where
oh
like
yeah,
the iceberg is a tiny little ice cap that looks tiny on the surface, and then they show you what's below the water, and it's like this massive, massive piece of ice.
right.
Like, I imagine when it comes, I've always assumed for anybody who ever considers the two of us reactionary, when we talk about wide receivers clapping at you, when we talk about the body language, when we talk about players quitting in game number 1 and game number 3 of your season, we're saying these are big deals because they're tiny little stupid actions, but they're usually evidence of the iceberg, right? Like that there's
Mhm.
bigger problems because when it's one guy who's just going bananas on the sidelines, nobody really worries about it. When it's a little bit of everybody, like your whole wide receiver room isn't a big bunch of locker room cancers, but they might all hate Chase Claypool, and Chase Claypool might be setting them all off. Maybe. Or Chase Claypool's eating a bullet that wasn't really meant for him. But I don't know why EQ and Claypool can't be active at the same time. Apparently, the Bears thought that was just a must.
There's a height barrier. You can only have so many tall receivers. The rest you have to have short.
Clearly, because that one jet sweep we did for Valus, that really turned the game on its head.
Yeah. Like, my God. And he's the kick returner, and then we have to have one guy active that's just the punt returner. And we
Right.
gotta.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, you don't see this with other teams. Other teams figure it out. Just do this and then boom. Like they utilize their talent.
the Cardinals aren't like winning right now, but I would like to point out that as of recording this, the afternoon or like in the afternoon, the Cardinals have the ball. They are down 10-21 against the 49ers. 49ers are a tough team. Dallas, have you checked the scores recently, Nick?
Yeah, I got him up right now.
So then you see that Dallas is blowing out the Patriots in Dallas 3-28. But that Cardinals team beat that Dallas team because say what you will, the NFL's wonky. And when you're a competitive organization, anything can happen. But right now, feels like the Bears are finding nuanced and creative ways to end up on the losing side every contest they play on. And eventually that'll change. It has to.
Eventually.
It
But
has to.
we got a game here in like 4 days, so we'll know soon. I mean, because that's a big game. You can't go 0-5.
I mean, this one was a big game. The
cannot.
Chiefs
It
game
was.
was only not a big game because it was the Chiefs, right?
Right.
Like we're in that moment where you and I, what do you say? We probably stop saying this after 0-5 because if 0-5 does happen, well, we could definitely say you can't go 0-6, but you couldn't go 0-5 or 0-4 either, right?
Right. I mean, honestly, like it doesn't matter. Like if you go 0-5, it's completely done.
And I don't know what's going to happen there, if only because at that point, Nick, if the Bears go 0-5, like you got a mini bye too. So
Yeah.
if you wanted to implement a little more wholesale change, you could try.
Oh, that's when it's happening.
That's when what's happening.
Someone's going to get fired.
Somebody
After
is.
0-5? Yes.
I'm saying make your prediction now. Do you think that? So I've got 3 options for you. Okay. Because I think that there's 3 primary methods to assign blame. You could pin it on the quarterback. You could say, even when he's good, he's not clutch, and that's just not enough. And my guy Tyson, he's nails. He should have been there. I don't know. You go that route. But the main reason I even bring it up, like that would be benching Justin Fields. Yep. And the only reason that would even consider happening is because every time Luke Getsy talks, for some reason, he comes straight out and says, oh yeah, it's a player, so it wasn't me. Like every other coach.
It sounds like Zach Wilson. Remember Zach Wilson? Oh no, I'm not the problem. Last year with his defense, remember that?
One of the best pull quotes ever. Like, hey, do you feel bad at all? Like, or no, what was it? It was, Do you feel like you
Did
let
you
the
let your
defense
defense down or
down?
something like that?
No.
I
But
mean,
so
as a leader, you take blame and you give out praise. That's how it works.
take blame, give out praise, and assume that your teammates are going to do exactly the same thing. And
Yep.
the moment that somebody doesn't, and to be fair, none of them have. Like Matt Eberflus didn't say, "Hey, that's on me. I got outcoached and I need to
Mhm.
coach better." Nope. He said, I thought we came in with a good game plan. We just didn't execute it. That's how you blame the players. And then Luke Getsy said, "Yeah, we left 7 or 8 explosive plays on the field against Kansas City." Oh my gosh. That's a huge number, Nick. Saying we left 7 or 8 explosive plays on the field is like saying my guys all have 2 left feet and none of them can dance.
I did not see 7 or 8 plays left out there.
Maybe if you count extreme garbage time when the game was already out of hand.
Come on.
Anyways,
Maybe he meant his play calls. He messed up 7 or 8 play calls and they would have been explosives.
maybe, but
I would have believed that one.
that's not how he said it. And
Yeah.
so then whenever the beat asks Flus about this after the game, or like after Luke's presser, Flus pretty much goes, "Yeah, I agree with him." And so with Flus and Getsy not distancing themselves from each other at all, I sit here and I'm like, well, you can't really blame the quarterback. You're going to really struggle to blame the quarterback after a game like this, or even a week removed from a game like this. And you're totally right. We got to wrap this up. But so what do you think happens? Getsy's last day in Chicago, week 5?
I would love with a new president and a GM that hasn't done this before. That would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get rid of both of them, because you have to think about who can run the team. That's the other part.
Yeah,
You
Richard
already got a
Hightower.
defensive coordinator. I almost wonder if they can hire someone to be an interim, like a long time, and then like someone's going to run the offense, probably quarterback coach, someone who can run the defense. But like the defense is the problem. The
Right.
bigger problem, and we already know the offense is not run great, but the defense is the biggest problem. So Flus, I think, is the one. So in my mind, you go 0-5. My prediction: Eberflus is gone.
I would love it. It's never happened. It's never even gotten close to happening in Chicago. And I don't think that they go into Minnesota, because I think the next game's at Minnesota, as favorites at all.
I'll check.
Nor should they deserve it. My guess would be that they fire Luke Getsy, or the more controversial pick, that nothing happens at all, Nick, and that everybody ends up mad for days, and that nothing changes, and they try out a new offense against Minnesota. Maybe it's successful. This team is actually more talented than they've shown. It's really, really driving me nuts. Like every time they're competitive, I'm like, this is the Bears team I thought we'd see.
Yep.
But then they just fall apart. But all that to say, Nick, let's wrap up here. What are your final thoughts on this one?
I'm proud of Justin Fields and the offense. I know like they kind of got in their way some penalties and didn't finish out the second half how they wanted to, but they put themselves in position to be successful on plays and drives.
Mm-hmm.
And even on that fumble, one of my favorite things about that fumble, which sounds terrible to say, that got returned for a touchdown, Justin Fields was sprinting to catch him at the end. That's a guy I want on my team. I am incredibly disappointed with the defense, the lack of tackling, lack of hustle, in my opinion. And Flus, I'm done.
Oh, I'm done. I mean, in a word, to me, this is Bears again. Like this is the end times, because you can't go 0-4 after having just gotten the first overall pick last season, especially with a talent like Caleb Williams. You could even say Drake May, and I'd be there going, yeah, that's a sweet talent, like looming over your team's shoulder, because that stuff casts a shadow, man. Like once the fans start saying it, it becomes real, you know. And no matter what, the moment you realize that a section of your stadium is cheering because you went 3 and out, like halfway through the season, like you got issues. And that is some toxic stuff. Toxic's the name of the game right now. And I don't know how the Bears pull themselves out of the funk. I'm actually still in disbelief, if you can believe me. Nearly 2 hours removed from the game, Nick. I can't believe they actually lost it.
I know.
I thought it was going to be much less competitive. and that the Bears were like, I did not expect the Bears offense to swing as hard as they did. Boy, did they. They looked awesome for 3 quarters. I can't believe the wheels fell off like they did. I mean, felt like an older brother took over the controller for the Denver Broncos and that like reset the settings to easy on Chicago.
All Madden now.
Right? Like ridiculous. But we lived it. It actually happened. And
I know
it can work out for the better for Chicago, but that's hard to say. It's easy to say and it's hard to like think and feel. Like this sucks.
It does suck.
It's the longest losing streak. I hope this wrote Flus's pink slip and that the ink is drying. I really do. Because I don't think that there's any rationale that Flus is the leader this team needs. Quarterback, you can have that conversation. Today was sick. Like offensive coordinator, I don't know why you'd have this conversation, but I guess you could have it if you really wanted to. But the defense is the biggest problem. I think that's unacceptable. And you could even make the argument that with Alan Williams recusing himself so early, Flus has less excuses to hide behind at this stage.
Yeah, because like that was the conversation, right? He didn't have a lot of talent with the Colts, but he still pulled it off. And now you're like, maybe it was the talent with the Colts that pulled it off, but it wasn't him.
Right. But either way, Bears fans, we will be with you a little earlier than usual. What are we going to try to aim for? A Wednesday release?
Yes.
That sounds right to me. So we'll figure out some way to record right before All 20 Tuesday so that we can get you guys a brand new episode of the Bear With Us podcast as we head into, Nick, the game. If this wasn't the game, this next one is the game. And it'll be a big game for Washington too. Like, it should be a standard case of sloppy Thursday night football, and hopefully the Bears slop their way to the right side of the win column and don't leave us breaking out draft reports by week 9.
Well, Carolina keep losing, and Fields looks great, and they figure it out. I don't care either way.
Right now, Carolina's as good a bet as any. Like, I think it was ESPN gave gave the Bears organization 50% odds at picks 1 or 2 last week. With this win, I have to imagine that those odds went up in a big way because both of the two winless teams playing each other was a massive leverage point. But we've talked enough. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Do be sure to give us a review wherever you can. We love y'all so much. Let us know what's working, what's not working about the show, and we will see you next time. Bear down. Oh, Nick, tell us what you got working on. What you working on?
Yeah. So at _Nick Whalen on Twitter if you want to interact. I'll be doing another Justin Fields video. Likely tomorrow. We're recording Sunday. I'm sure JT O'Sullivan's going to get one out there. So I got some good reviews last week. So please check me out, even if you do check out JT O'Sullivan.
Awesome. And then I will be with you on All 20 Tuesday as usual. I'll see what I can pump out. I don't know what drive I'll break down. There's a lot of scoring drives in this one, but we'll find one too. And until next time, Bears fans, bear down. And thank you so much for bearing with us.